Hi, my name is Brody Powell. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Texas. I have a workshop called Caregiver 2.0 that you may be interested in. This workshop is for anybody who puts the needs of others above themselves so much that we tend to neglect ourselves in the process. So I'm talking to you schools, right? Your teachers do that, don't they? I'm talking to hospitals and medical organizations. I've met with lots of nurse practitioners and doctors, CNAs in my therapy practice. I'm talking to social work entities like CPS, to engage, um, also pastors and churches. So a lot of these different organizations tend to be in the service of others so much, again, that we neglect ourselves in the process. I'm here to rewrite that. I'm tired of Caregiver 1.0 where it looks like burnout and exhaustion, and I'm going to continually say yes to people even though I don't have the capacity to do so. So let me show you in just a few minutes what Caregiver 2.0 is all about. This is actually the workbook that I will use to present to your organization, and then I'll leave my information with you afterwards on how to get a hold of me to bring me to your organization. So the first thing is we tend to get caregiving a little backwards here. These are some of the broken ways. So the first thing, selfish, is something that people in the organizations that I work with, you would never define them as selfish. Okay, so you'll see in the umbrella that a selfish person has an umbrella over them and they leave out the other person. They don't care. And that's not what your organization does. And that's not what your workers do. Okay. Instead, what they tend to do is they tend to be selfless. And you'll see in that it is we're holding an umbrella over someone else. And look in the picture there, my friends. Okay. They are out in the rain. Okay. So what I believe, selfless is a good thing and it should be a verb where we take an action of holding our umbrella over the other person, but it should not be who we are. Okay. Because if we are selfless, we become less of ourself. Okay, so that's where a lot of the caregiving burnout is that we constantly hold our umbrella over others and meet their needs and make sure they are comfortable and make sure they are taken care of while we are out in the misery ourselves. So Caregiver 2.0 is about figuring out how do we expand our capacity? How do we increase the bandwidth of our umbrella so that, and you can see in the picture here, so that both of us can fit under it, both the person caring and the person that they're caring for. The next thing is these different 8 dimensions of wellness. In it, we'll go through all the different dimensions: physical wellness, social wellness, occupational wellness, intellectual wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, financial wellness, and environmental wellness. Okay, and I'll go and I'll break down what all of those mean. But on top of that, I will also break them down in ways that are much more palatable. Whenever you hear physical wellness, you hear diet and exercise, right? But I talk about self-image, about if we have a love for ourselves, we tend to do things that love us a little bit more. If we identify as a healthy person, we tend to do what healthy people do. Okay, so I talk a lot about that identity side of things, about taking small steps and that type of thing throughout the presentation. Um, the next part is kind of how this evolves into a Caregiver 2.0. So we're going to take your 8 different dimensions of wellness, and in it, we'll have these different dimensions, and we'll actually be coloring them in. So let's say, for instance, that you put your physical wellness on a 0 to 10 scale at a 2. Okay? And so what we would do is we'd go up here and find about where this is a halfway point. This is where a 5 out of 10 would be. This is where a 10 out of 10 would be, covering up the entire space. But a 2 might be about right here, right? And we have your audience participants color in these umbrellas. Okay, so as they start to realize and see where their wellness is, it's just an incredible way of visualizing, oh, I don't have the capacity to care for others, or, oh, I've really neglected this part of my wellness. And then we can also find, and you'll see here in just a little bit too, the strengths. So maybe social wellness. We've got a great social wellness connection. Maybe it's at an 8 or even a 9. And then the person will color in all of this area. So we'll be able to quickly see our strengths and our weaknesses as a part of our umbrella of wellness. So you'll see at the bottom of this that a Caregiver 2.0, the best ones, we're going to go for 50. We're not going to go for 80. I'm not going to be preaching to be a machine. And on top of that, if your physical wellness is a 10 out of 10, are you hanging out with your friends or are you just in the gym all the time, right? So with that, the 10s are great, but I don't expect people to be at a 10 all the time. In fact, a 50 is, just it's past halfway on all these. But overall, if we can get a 50 on our score of Umbrella of Wellness or a 6 and above on all the categories, that is a person who is giving sustainable caregiving, who is far less likely to burn out because they are meeting their own needs, and they're able to increase that bandwidth of their umbrella as they serve others under their umbrella. The next part is I go and I do these different takeaways of all these different dimensions of wellness. This is coming from my, over a decade of mental health experience. And so all of this comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, solutions focused therapy, and just my own. I'm a reading nerd, so I read like 60 books a year. So a lot of these come from different books as well. So that being said, you're going to get a highly educated vision of what each one of these wellness dimensions are. What this is not, by the way, is 99 self-care tips. I've been to that type of training so many times, and all it does is just make us as caregivers feel like we've got one more thing that we have to do. We don't need that. What we need is things that take away. Right? So as I talk about, I usually share about counseling being a moment where we've been turning up the spigot and trying to do so much more and more and more, and we're adding more pressure to ourselves. But counseling kind of gives a chance to find the kinks in the hose and unkink them, right? So this workshop is designed to do that as well. From here, we talk through the different ways to repair the umbrella. Most of the time, whenever people see their umbrella, they are not satisfied with it. We'll see it and be a little bit, maybe a little bit embarrassed, and have a hard time swallowing it. So the way that we do it is we do it by patchworking. So we take from, like, let's say in the umbrella that I drew earlier, that social was a 9 out of 10, and physical was a 2 out of 10. So we'll take a little piece from our social umbrella and we'll add it to the physical part of the umbrella by, hey, the next time I go out with this friend, instead of going to Chili's like we normally do, we're going to go on a walk, right? So that is something where you're still getting the social aspect of it, but you're adding to your physical wellness. So we can patchwork every single element of this. Every one of them that we have a strength in, we can patchwork to an area that we have a weakness in. And then the other way to improve, number 2 there, is sew in 1% momentum changes. So with that, I believe it's stitch by stitch. Okay, so as we do one small thing for ourselves, right? Let's say physical wellness again. As we might go to McDonald's, but maybe we're getting a water instead of a Coke. Maybe we're getting a smaller fry. Maybe we're getting a chicken sandwich instead of the Big Mac, right? Like, we're doing these small changes over and over and over again that lead to gigantic results. And so this is, a lot of that is taken from James Clear's Atomic Habits, which is just an incredible book. I read it twice a year. Like, it's that meaningful to me. This is my test for a 1% momentum change. So that's a term that I coined, and the litmus test there. I realize that word energy is on the checkbox. Oops, formatting issue. But for the litmus test, it takes less than 2 minutes to do. For a 1% momentum change, we can do it with 10 p.m. energy, which for me, I want to be almost horizontal at that point in time. I'm not going to go out and, let's say, run a mile. I'm not going to, I don't know, like, deposit a check for $200, right? Like that, those kind of things take a little bit more time than that and more energy than that. And then the last one is it's 100% in your control. I love going over that part of it because a lot of the times we will have a goal that is not 100% in our control, such as lose weight. And I say that it's in your control, but it's not 100% because sometimes we just have times of plateaus, right? But you know what is? Like if we check all these boxes here of takes less than 2 minutes, can do a 10 p.m. energy, and is 100% in your control, maybe that looks like putting your shoes by the door to go for the walk later that evening after work. Maybe it looks like scheduling the next time that you go for a workout. Maybe it's that Tuesday nights you intentionally plan to spend it with your family members, right? But you go ahead and you designate those times. You can do all of that from your phone in bed, right? So with that, we want to add these different elements. I go for all these different ideas that you'll see on the right here to add to that 1% momentum change. And then going from here, each one of your audience members will have this personalized plan of care. Okay, our goal as Caregiver 2.0 is to get to a 6 as quickly as we can in all the dimensions that we can. Okay, so with it, when we do the longer version of the workshop, which is roughly 3 hours, this gives set time for a person to be able to do these, talk through these different points here, such as, okay, physical wellness, was it a strength or was it a focus area? Was it a weakness area, right? So if it was a focus area that we need to look on and focus on, maybe we can patchwork it with, and we can point to one of our other elements, dimensions of wellness, okay? And then we can write our ideas right here. We can write our 1% momentum change ideas right here, and this will create each audience member's individualized plan of care to be able to take with them to incorporate into their own wellness. This is the next page on that. So again, we're going through the 8 different dimensions. There was 4 on the first page and then 4 on this page. And then at the end, I always love getting feedback. From my feedback, I'm able to continue to improve. And so with that, here's a bit of my information. If you scan the QR code here, that will get you my my digital business card. Okay. If that doesn't work for you for some reason, my email is brodypowellifepotential@gmail.com, and my phone number that'll go straight to my phone here is 325-238-6161. I love being able to share this information with you. Can I share it with your organization? Let's have a discovery call on what that might look like. Again, if you're a school, if you're a church, I've had people in the funeral home industry. If we give service and care to others, and we tend to put others' needs above our own, then this is a perfect match for what you're doing. Again, let's get on a discovery call together. I cannot wait to meet you, to talk with you, and to go from here, my friends. I wish you well.